What if medieval cures were far more effective than we usually give them credit for? When people imagine medicine in the Middle Ages, they picture crude surgeries and superstitious rituals. Bloodletting and strange remedies performed by barber surgeons in dimly lit rooms seem completely barbaric today. It's easy to assume medieval healing was mostly guesswork, mystical beliefs, or completely ineffective practices. Yet beneath these myths, many remedies genuinely worked, demonstrating surprising practical knowledge of natural medicine. Modern science now confirms that several of these ancient cures contain compounds with real therapeutic effects. Many of these treatments weren't complicated concoctions brewed by alchemists or mystical potions whispered about by monks. They were rooted in something far more accessible: herbs, plants, and natural substances drawn directly from the world around them. These weren't simply desperate measures used by peasants who had no better options. They were remedies refined over centuries of observation, trial, and survival in some of the harshest conditions imaginable. What's more, a surprising number of these ancient cures still have a place in modern survival strategies. If you found yourself stranded in the wilderness or cut off from modern medicine, you might discover that medieval wisdom could be the very thing that keeps you alive. So instead of laughing at medieval medicine as nothing more than leeches and superstition, let's take a closer look. You may find that many of these forgotten remedies are not only effective, but practical in ways that even modern survivalists rely on today. Let's explore 10 medieval medicines that might just keep you alive in the wild. When we think of garlic today, most of us picture it sizzling in a pan of olive oil, flavoring a hearty meal, or warding off vampires in old folk tales. But to medieval people, garlic was far more than a kitchen staple. It was a weapon against disease. Across Europe, it was prized for its ability to fight infections, drive out parasites, and protect the body from unseen threats. Physicians of the Middle Ages, whether trained in universities or practicing in village huts, frequently prescribed garlic as part of their medical repertoire. What's fascinating is that this wasn't merely superstition dressed up as medicine. Modern science has confirmed what medieval healers suspected. Garlic is a natural antibiotic. It contains a powerful compound called allicin, which has been shown to combat bacteria, fungi, and even certain viruses. Long before the discovery of penicillin, people were already harnessing garlic's ability to cleanse wounds, fight fevers, and strengthen the body's defenses. During times of plague, some households even hung braids of garlic by their doors, hoping it would purify the air and ward off sickness. For survival today, garlic still has undeniable value. If you were far from a hospital and needed a natural way to fight infection, garlic could make the difference between life and death. Crushed cloves applied to a wound can help slow bacterial growth, while eating it regularly boosts the immune system from within. In a survival scenario, when antibiotics are out of reach, this simple bulb, grown easily, stored for months, and found almost anywhere, remains one of the most practical, time-tested medicines in history. Garlic wasn't just food to medieval people. It was protection, strength, and a lifeline against the unseen forces of disease. To a medieval person, honey was never just food. It was light trapped in liquid form, a gift gathered by bees and prized as one of the most versatile and precious substances available. Across Europe, honey filled a unique space. It was nourishment, it was luxury, and most importantly, it was medicine. In monasteries where monks carefully recorded healing recipes in manuscripts and cultivated apothecary gardens, honey appeared again and again in their remedies. Whether for wounds, infections, or persistent coughs, honey was considered one of the safest and most reliable treatments available to both peasants and kings. When a wound refused to close, when infection threatened, medieval healers turned to honey as a last resort, and more often than not, it worked. Applied directly to the skin, honey formed a protective barrier, keeping out dirt and disease. It had a texture and consistency that clung to the injury, soothing the pain while simultaneously drawing moisture away from bacteria. What medieval healers could not see, but certainly recognized through centuries of observation, was that honey's natural chemistry gave it its strength. Its high sugar content and low water activity create an environment where microbes cannot grow. Even more, honey contains trace amounts of hydrogen peroxide, slowly released over time, which actively kills harmful bacteria. Without understanding microbiology, medieval healers had discovered an antimicrobial dressing that modern science now validates. But honey was not reserved only for battle wounds or festering sores. It was also a remedy for the everyday illnesses that haunted medieval life. Mixed with herbs, it was used to soothe coughs and sore throats, coating the inflamed tissues with its sticky sweetness. It was added to wines and syrups to treat digestive issues, or simply consumed on its own for its restorative effects. In times of scarcity, it offered not just healing, but energy, dense calories packed into every golden spoonful, making it a small but vital source of strength when food supplies ran low. Even today, survivalists and military medics recognize honey as more than a sweetener. It is carried in survival kits as a ready-made antiseptic and emergency food supply. Unlike many modern medicines that degrade over time, honey is virtually immortal. Archaeologists have uncovered jars of honey in Egyptian tombs thousands of years old, still edible and still potent. Imagine that, a medicine that never expires, that can heal wounds, feed the body, and soothe pain, all without refrigeration, laboratories, or factories. That is why honey was so treasured in the Middle Ages, and why it continues to be one of the most practical, timeless medicines you could hope to find if you were ever forced to survive without modern resources. In the world of medieval medicine, honey stood out as one of the few remedies that consistently worked, not because of faith or ritual, but because of undeniable natural properties. It was a balm, a preservative, a healer, and in its own way, a miracle. In the Middle Ages, when illness struck, or when the body ached from the relentless demands of survival, there was no cabinet of neatly labeled pills waiting to provide relief. Yet people still found ways to ease pain, reduce fever, and keep moving in the face of sickness. One of the most trusted and widespread remedies was drawn from something almost anyone could find: the bark of the willow tree. To the medieval mind, willow had a reputation that stretched back even further, deep into antiquity. The Greeks had recommended it, Roman physicians praised it, and by the time of medieval Europe, its use was so well established that it appeared regularly in herbal manuals and healing guides. Physicians, monks, and even ordinary villagers knew that steeping strips of willow bark in hot water and drinking the resulting bitter brew could calm a fever, soothe an aching head, and ease the throbbing pain of inflamed joints. Though they did not understand the molecular structure behind it, they knew through centuries of trial and error that this humble tree carried something powerful in its fibers. Today we know that willow bark contains salicin, a compound the body metabolizes into salicylic acid, the chemical ancestor of modern aspirin. This discovery, made much later, explains why the remedy was so effective. For a medieval farmer struggling with the pain of arthritis, or a soldier recovering from wounds and infection, willow bark tea might have been the only relief they could find. In a world without morphine, ibuprofen, or acetaminophen, willow was nothing short of a natural painkiller, one that could mean the difference between lying helpless and continuing to work, fight, or survive. Consider the brutal realities of medieval life. Labor was constant, injuries frequent, and diseases unrelenting. A fever, left unchecked, could spiral into death. But willow bark offered hope. Its ability to cool the body's burning heat and lessen suffering made it one of the most practical medicines available. Some healers even combined it with honey or herbs to make it easier to swallow, recognizing that its bitter taste was often difficult to bear. Despite its unpleasant flavor, the relief it offered far outweighed the discomfort of drinking it. Even in a survival context today, the wisdom of medieval healers holds true. If you were lost in the wilderness and without access to modern medicine, knowing that willow bark can act as a natural aspirin could be life-saving. Boiling strips of bark into a tea or chewing on fresh twigs provides not only hydration, but also pain relief. It is a direct line from medieval knowledge to modern survival strategy, showing us how resourceful people were long before the rise of pharmaceutical science. Willow bark was more than a folk remedy. It was a cornerstone of natural medicine. It shows us that medieval healers, though lacking microscopes and chemical formulas, were far from ignorant. They observed, they experimented, and they learned. And in willow bark, They found one of nature's most enduring gifts, a way to ease human suffering. Few plants in the medieval world carried as much respect on the battlefield as yarrow. Known in some regions as soldier's woundwort, this humble herb earned its reputation not in the quiet corners of apothecaries, but in the mud, blood, and chaos of war. Soldiers and healers alike recognized its almost uncanny ability to stop bleeding, and so it became one of the most vital plants in medieval medicine. When armies clashed and wounds were opened by sword, spear, or arrow, yarrow was often the first line of defense against blood loss and infection. The use of yarrow stretches far beyond the medieval period, with its healing reputation dating back to the ancient Greeks. It was said that Achilles himself used the plant to treat the injuries of his soldiers during the Trojan War, a legend that even influenced its scientific name, Achillea millefolium. By the Middle Ages, its place in medicine was firmly established. Monks cultivated it in their cloisters, wise women gathered it in meadows, and battlefield medics kept it close at hand. Its feathery leaves and small white flowers may have looked delicate, but within them lay properties that made the difference between life and death. When applied directly to wounds, yarrow could slow or even stop bleeding. Crushed into a poultice, it helped close cuts and prevent them from festering. Some healers even powdered the dried plant and sprinkled it directly into wounds to accelerate clotting. Beyond bleeding, yarrow was also valued for reducing inflammation and easing pain, making it doubly useful in treating injuries. In an age before antiseptics and sterile dressings, the plant's ability to calm the body's reaction and shield against infection was nothing short of miraculous. Modern science supports what medieval healers knew through experience. Yarrow contains alkaloids that promote blood clotting, along with compounds that reduce inflammation and aid in healing. It is, in essence, nature's field dressing. Even today, herbalists and survival experts point to yarrow as one of the most useful plants to know when venturing into the wild. In a survival situation, where a deep cut or uncontrolled bleeding can quickly turn fatal, finding and using yarrow could save your life. It can be chewed and applied directly, brewed into a tea for internal inflammation, or ground into a salve if the plant is available in abundance. Imagine a medieval soldier struck by a blade in the middle of combat. With no surgeon nearby, no hospital to rush to, his best hope was the knowledge carried by those who knew the land. Yarrow, growing wild in fields and along roadsides, was medicine within reach. It could stabilize him until further care was possible, or in many cases, it could be the only care he would ever receive. This is what makes yarrow such a powerful example of medieval medicine at its best. It wasn't mystical, it wasn't based on superstition. It was grounded in direct, practical observation. People saw it work, again and again, and passed that knowledge forward. And for anyone today armed with the same awareness, yarrow remains one of nature's most dependable allies when blood is spilled and survival hangs in the balance. In the medieval world, where harsh sun, open hearths, and the constant presence of fire made burns a common hazard, few plants were as valued for their soothing properties as aloe vera. Though its origins lay in warmer climates, particularly in North Africa and the Mediterranean, trade and monastic gardens ensured that this strange-looking plant, with its thick, fleshy leaves, found its way into medieval Europe. To those who used it, aloe was a kind of living pharmacy, a single plant that seemed designed to heal. Medieval medical texts describe aloe vera as a cooling agent, something to draw out heat and soothe damaged skin. Applied directly, the gel-like substance inside its leaves calmed burns, eased rashes, and softened wounds. Travelers and pilgrims, scorched by the sun or blistered by rough journeys, turned to it for relief. It was also used internally in small doses to aid digestion and relieve constipation, showing that its reputation went beyond the surface of the body. In an age when medical remedies were often harsh and even dangerous, aloe stood out as both gentle and effective. Modern science affirms what these healers already suspected. Aloe vera contains compounds that accelerate wound healing, reduce inflammation, and even act as mild antibacterials. Its gel forms a protective barrier over the skin, keeping it hydrated while giving it the space and environment to repair itself. For a medieval peasant burned while tending an open fire, or a smith singed by hot metal, Aloe offered hope for recovery without infection or lingering scars. Even beyond burns, it was used to treat insect bites, small cuts, and irritations of every kind. In the context of survival today, aloe remains one of the most practical plants you could hope to have at your side. Imagine being stranded in a hot environment where sunburn and dehydration threaten your strength. Aloe not only soothes burned skin, it also helps prevent infection in minor wounds, and when consumed carefully, can aid digestion during times of stress and poor diet. Its ability to both heal and cool makes it uniquely versatile in situations where resources are scarce. Survival manuals often note aloe as a must-know plant, echoing the same wisdom medieval healers carried centuries ago. What makes aloe vera so remarkable is how unchanged its role has been. Thousands of years ago, healers pressed its gel into wounds, monks cultivated it in gardens for medicinal use, and today, we buy it in bottles to treat burns from the very same source. It is a perfect example of continuity between past and present, proving that some of the simplest remedies remain the best. For medieval people, aloe vera was nature's salve, a direct gift of healing from the earth itself. And if you were ever forced to survive without modern medicine, it could very well become yours too. At first glance, nettles hardly look like a medicine. In fact, to most people, they look like trouble. Their sting is infamous. Brush against their leaves in the wild, and you'll quickly feel the sharp burn and rash that comes from their tiny, hair-like needles. Yet, for medieval people, nettles were not an enemy to avoid, but a plant to embrace. They understood that hidden behind its sting was a remarkable source of strength, nourishment, and healing. In the Middle Ages, nettles were used in a wide variety of ways, and their versatility earned them a permanent place in both folk and scholarly medicine. Herbal texts praised them for easing joint pain, calming inflammation, and even helping with circulation. When brewed into a tea, nettles were taken to relieve fatigue, cleanse the body, and restore energy. Some healers recommended them for those suffering from anemia or weakness, long before anyone understood the role of iron in the blood. Others used nettle poultices on swollen joints, finding that the sting itself could stimulate circulation and relieve stiffness. A practice that sounds strange today, but may have given real relief in a world where arthritis and chronic pain were everyday burdens. What makes nettles especially important is that they are not just medicine, but food. High in vitamins A, C, and K, rich in iron, magnesium, and calcium, and packed with protein, nettles were a lifeline in times of scarcity. For medieval villagers facing lean winters or poor harvests, nettles could be harvested from the wild and boiled down into soups and stews, turning what might seem like a weed into a source of survival. Their sting disappears with cooking, leaving behind a nutritious green that kept people alive when other food was scarce. Modern science has confirmed what medieval people discovered through experience. Nettles truly are a powerhouse of nutrients, acting as both a tonic for the body and a mild anti-inflammatory. They are still used in herbal medicine today for allergies, arthritis, and as a general health booster. And in survival training, nettles are often highlighted as one of the most important wild plants to recognize, precisely because they provide both sustenance and healing. Imagine the difference this plant could make in a survival scenario. If you were stranded with little to eat, nettles could supply you with the vitamins and minerals your body desperately needs to keep going. If your joints were inflamed from hard labor or your body weakened from fatigue, nettle tea could restore some of your strength. And if infection or swelling threatened to immobilize you, nettle poultices might help you keep moving. For medieval people, nettles weren't just an herb, they were an ally, a green shield against hunger and exhaustion. It is a reminder that sometimes the most unassuming plants, the ones that sting, irritate, or repel us at first, hide the greatest gifts. Medieval medicine thrived on that kind of knowledge, the ability to look past discomfort and see healing where others might see only pain. And in nettles, they found one of the most valuable survival tools nature had to offer. If there was one plant that medieval people turned to when the chill of illness swept through their homes, it was elderberry. Growing on hedgerows, in woodlands, and at the edges of fields, the elder tree was both ordinary and magical, a familiar presence in daily life, yet steeped in folklore. Its berries, small, dark, and bitter, were known less for their flavor than for their power to protect the body from sickness. For medieval villagers, who lived with the constant threat of fevers, coughs, and plagues, elderberry became a shield against the unseen forces that drained their strength and claimed so many lives. Medieval healers prescribed elderberry for colds, influenza-like illnesses, and fevers. The berries were boiled down into syrups or infused into wines, creating remedies that were as practical as they were palatable. The flowers, too, were steeped in teas to soothe sore throats and bring down high temperatures. Some even believed the elder tree itself had protective powers, planting it near their homes to ward off evil spirits and disease. But beyond the superstition, the practical use of elderberry as medicine was clear. Those who took it seemed to recover faster, to shake off fevers more quickly, and to withstand the cold seasons with greater resilience. Modern science has more than confirmed these observations. Elderberries contain compounds that block viruses from attaching to cells, giving the immune system an edge in fighting off infection. Clinical studies have shown that elderberry extracts can reduce the severity and duration of colds and flu, echoing the very same results medieval healers noted through generations of practice. At a time when antibiotics and antivirals were unheard of, elderberry stood as one of the best defenses nature provided. In a survival context today, elderberry is just as valuable. Illness is one of the greatest threats when living without modern medicine. A simple fever, untreated, can spiral into something deadly. Having access to elderberry, whether as a syrup, tea, or tincture, could mean the difference between recovery and decline. Beyond its medicinal properties, the berries also offer nutrition. Rich in vitamins A and C, they strengthen the body at the very moment it needs energy most. The elder tree, with its gnarled branches and clusters of tiny berries, was often called medicine chest of the country people. It offered healing in its flowers, protection in its bark, and immunity in its fruit. For medieval villagers, it was a lifeline during the cold seasons of hunger and disease. And for anyone forced to survive today without access to doctors or pharmacies, elderberry remains one of the most powerful natural shields you could ever hope to find. Mint is one of those plants that immediately evokes freshness, the cool, sharp aroma that clears the senses and awakens the palate. But in the Middle Ages, it was valued far beyond its pleasant scent. Medieval healers, monks, and herbalists recognized mint as an essential remedy for the digestive system. Stomach cramps, nausea, indigestion, and bloating were common afflictions in a world where food was often hard to digest, poorly preserved, or contaminated, and mint became a trusted solution, a plant that could bring comfort and relief when the body was under stress. Mint was used in multiple forms. Fresh leaves were chewed, crushed, or steeped into teas. It was incorporated into sauces and medicinal syrups, and the oil extracted from its leaves was sometimes applied externally to calm discomfort. The plant's cooling properties made it effective for calming an upset stomach, reducing inflammation, and even easing headaches or respiratory irritation. In medieval manuscripts, mint frequently appears alongside other herbs in recipes designed to restore balance to the body, showing that healers understood the interconnectedness of digestion, comfort, and overall health long before modern physiology explained it. What is remarkable is how practical mint was, both for everyday use and in emergency situations. If someone ate spoiled food, consumed water that was slightly contaminated, or simply felt weak from overexertion, a simple mint infusion could settle the stomach, ease nausea, and prevent further complications. It was a remedy that could be prepared quickly, with minimal tools, and with plants that grew almost everywhere. Its availability made it indispensable for villagers and travelers alike. Modern science confirms what medieval healers had known by observation. Mint contains menthol and other compounds that relax the digestive tract, relieve spasms, and soothe irritation. Its antibacterial properties help combat minor digestive infections, while its aroma can calm the mind and reduce stress. For survivalists today, these same benefits remain relevant. When your body is under strain, when food and water sources are unpredictable, or when exhaustion makes you more vulnerable to illness, mint can stabilize and restore your system. Imagine being lost in the wilderness, your stomach upset from foraged food or contaminated water. The discomfort could spiral into dehydration, weakness, and even panic if untreated. Having mint, either fresh or dried, would provide immediate relief, giving your body a chance to regain strength. That combination of availability, versatility, and effectiveness is exactly why medieval people valued it so highly. Mint was not just a culinary herb, it was a natural medicine, a protector of digestion, and a subtle but powerful aid for survival. In essence, mint teaches us a lesson that medieval healers knew well. Sometimes the simplest remedies, the ones that grow quietly along paths and hedgerows, are the most indispensable. Its ability to heal, soothe, and energize made it a cornerstone of natural medicine, and even today, it stands as one of the most practical and accessible tools in the arsenal of anyone who wants to survive and thrive outside the comforts of modern healthcare. Comfrey, often called knit bone by medieval healers, earned its name and reputation from a remarkable ability to accelerate the healing of broken bones, sprains, and bruises. Imagine a peasant or soldier in the Middle Ages, struck by accident, battle, or the unforgiving labor of daily life. With no modern casts, painkillers, or antibiotics, even a simple fracture could become life-threatening if it did not heal correctly. Comfrey was one of the few plants that offered a real solution, and knowledge of its properties was passed carefully from healer to apprentice, from parent to child. The leaves and roots of comfrey were crushed and applied directly to injured areas, often bound with cloth or bandages to hold them in place. It was also brewed into poultices, ointments, and sometimes teas for internal use, depending on the ailment being treated. Medieval texts describe comfrey as a plant that knits bones, and while they lacked the precise scientific language we have today, repeated observation made its effectiveness clear. Wounds closed faster, bruises faded more quickly, and even minor fractures had a greater chance of uniting properly when treated with comfrey. Modern studies have confirmed the properties that made comfrey a cornerstone of medieval medicine. It contains allantoin, a compound that promotes cell proliferation and tissue regeneration, accelerating the healing of bones and connective tissue. This makes comfrey one of the few herbs with a scientifically verified impact on physical repair. Of course, today we understand that internal use of comfrey must be approached carefully due to certain toxic compounds, but external application remains remarkably effective and safe, echoing centuries of medieval practice. In survival situations, comfrey can be invaluable. A twisted ankle, a sprained wrist, or a shallow fracture could turn into a debilitating injury without proper treatment. Applying comfrey to the injured area can help stabilize tissue, reduce inflammation, and promote faster recovery, enabling you to continue moving, gathering resources, or defending yourself. In the wild, when modern casts, splints, or medications are unavailable, comfrey is a living first aid kit, a reminder of how deeply medieval people understood the practical applications of the plants around them. Comfrey's power lies not in mysticism, but in observation, patience, and the careful application of natural compounds. Medieval healers recognized the difference it could make in mobility and survival, whether on the battlefield, in the fields, or in daily life. It is an extraordinary example of how a single plant could offer real, tangible healing, bridging the gap between traditional wisdom and modern science. For anyone today, knowledge of comfrey is not just an homage to the past, it is a tool for self-reliance and resilience when facing injuries without modern medicine. In the harsh and unpredictable world of the Middle Ages, stress and sleeplessness were far from rare inconveniences. They were serious threats to health and survival. Long days of labor in fields, exposure to cold and wet conditions, the constant risk of disease, and the emotional toll of warfare or plague meant that exhaustion and anxiety were constant companions. Medieval healers and apothecaries recognized the danger of chronic stress and sleepless nights, and one of their most trusted allies in restoring calm and sleep was valerian root. Valerian, with its long, tapering roots and unassuming white or pink flowers, was considered a powerful natural sedative. The root was often dried and steeped into teas or infused into tinctures, sometimes combined with other calming herbs to enhance its effects. Monks and herbalists prescribed it to ease agitation, soothe frayed nerves, and encourage restorative sleep. Its reputation extended beyond the elite. Peasants used it as a tonic to settle children, travelers carried it to calm themselves during long journeys, and soldiers relied on it to quiet their minds after the trauma of battle. In a society where mental strain could weaken the body and make illness more likely, valerian was a practical and life-affirming tool. Modern science has confirmed what medieval healers observed intuitively. Valerian contains compounds that interact with the central nervous system, promoting relaxation and reducing anxiety. Studies show it can improve sleep quality and shorten the time it takes to fall asleep without the dependency risks associated with modern pharmaceuticals. For anyone living without access to contemporary medicine, the ability to manage stress and achieve rest is critical. Exhaustion weakens immunity, slows healing, and diminishes cognitive function. Valerian addresses this need naturally, supporting both the mind and body in conditions that demand resilience. Imagine the challenges faced by someone stranded in the wilderness or recovering from an injury in a survival scenario. Beyond physical wounds, the mental burden of isolation, fear, and uncertainty can be just as debilitating. A few sips of valerian tea could help calm the mind, steady the nerves, and allow for restorative sleep, giving the body the energy and focus necessary to continue surviving. It's a subtle, yet essential, kind of medicine, one that emphasizes that survival isn't just about treating cuts and fevers, but also about sustaining mental and emotional endurance. Valerian root exemplifies the depth of medieval knowledge. While many remedies address the visible, physical challenges of life, this plant shows that medieval healers understood the invisible, internal battles as well. It bridges the ancient and modern worlds, proving that some remedies, grounded in careful observation and natural chemistry, remain as relevant today as they were centuries ago. In an era without pharmaceuticals, valerian offered a rare and vital gift: the ability to rest, recover, and face each day with renewed strength. As we look back across the centuries, it becomes clear that medieval medicine was far more sophisticated and practical than most people give it credit for. It wasn't just superstition, leeches, or ritual. It was the product of careful observation, trial, and an intimate understanding of the natural world. From garlic's ability to fight infection, to honey's remarkable antimicrobial power, from willow bark's pain-relieving qualities to yarrow's life-saving capacity to stop bleeding, each remedy reflects a profound knowledge of plants and their applications. Aloe soothed burns and injuries, nettles nourished and strengthened the body, elderberries bolstered immunity, and mint restored balance to the digestive system. Comfrey accelerated healing in ways that were crucial for mobility, while valerian root offered the calm and restorative sleep needed to endure daily hardships. These remedies were not random. They were carefully chosen, refined through experience, and trusted across generations. The remarkable thing is that many of these medicines continue to be relevant today. Modern science confirms what medieval healers long observed. These plants contain compounds that are genuinely effective in treating illness, reducing pain, and supporting survival. The Middle Ages were often brutal, with harsh living conditions and limited access to medical care. Yet people relied on these natural solutions to survive, recover, and maintain their strength. They remind us that survival does not depend solely on modern pharmaceuticals or high-tech interventions. Sometimes it depends on knowledge, resourcefulness, and the ability to recognize the healing potential in the world around us. Perhaps the most important lesson is the mindset these remedies encourage. Medieval medicine was practical, grounded, and adaptable. People learned to observe, to experiment, and to trust what worked. They understood that healing is both an art and a science, and that nature often provides solutions when nothing else is available. For anyone living without modern conveniences, whether lost in the wilderness, traveling through remote lands, or simply interested in self-reliance, this wisdom is invaluable. Knowing how to harness these remedies could make the difference between life and death, between illness and recovery, and between helplessness and resilience. So the next time we glance at a garlic clove, a jar of honey, or the leaves of a simple wild plant, it's worth remembering the generations who relied on these gifts to survive. The medieval world may seem distant, its customs strange, but its medicine was practical, tested, and enduring. If modern medicine were suddenly unavailable, The knowledge carried in these plants, and the understanding of how to use them wisely, could be the lifeline that keeps us alive. Ultimately, medieval medicine is more than a curiosity. It is a bridge between past and present, a reminder that some of the most effective solutions are the ones that have stood the test of time. From the humblest herb to the most revered root, these 10 remedies show us that survival, health, and resilience are often found not in complexity, but in the careful, patient study of the natural world. And in that knowledge lies the power to endure, adapt, and thrive, just as people did centuries ago.